Hundreds of employees in various sectors of life are encountered with specific questions when it comes to CBD and drug testing and their respective work environments. Will CBD show on a drug test? What about military personnel? Will CBD show on a military drug test? By the way, I'm Dale Hewitt, founder of New Phase Blends, and I want to talk with you today about CBD and drug tests. Unfortunately, some people who decide to use CBD to address anxiety, insomnia, pain, or other symptoms can unfairly fail drug tests for cannabis. There's a lot to discuss about CBD and drug testing, but before we begin, please subscribe and click on the like button below. It helps us out a lot, and it helps other people who can benefit from the information in this video as well. So you could fail a drug test for any residual THC in a CBD product, but you won't fail a drug test for CBD itself. Make sense? Let's talk about how drug tests work. Employers collect and transfer samples, commonly urine, to companies who run drug tests via a machine that has the potential to measure trace chemicals in a liquid. The technicians search for evidence of a byproduct of the main active cannabinoid, THC. It's rare for employers to test hair, saliva, or blood from their employees. It's really expensive to do this. A federal worker can fail a drug test if their urine tests positive for any trace amount of THC metabolites. When we say trace, we mean only 50 billionths of a gram per milliliter of urine. That is a tiny amount. I can't even really imagine how tiny it is. That's how small it is. The common reason a worker may fail a drug test is THC content. According to popular cannabis website Leafly, in 2018, about 2.3% of all U.S. drug tests came out positive for the use of cannabis. There is a potential that an older and common type of analytical method falsely identifies THC and a sample containing only CBD. A reporter by the name of Amanda Chicago Lewis estimated that thousands of false positives might result from this error annually. CBD and drug testing obviously has some errors that it needs to address, just like Amanda says. Some users of CBD have challenged a failed drug test for THC successfully if the laboratory made use of this particular method, which can result in a false report of CBD. The cannabis plant produces both CBD and THC, in addition to a ton of other cannabinoids. CBD derived from federally legal hemp can still possess up to 0.3% THC. If you consume a very high CBD dose, I'm talking thousands of milligrams per day, from the legal CBD oil, it implies that you may also be consuming at least 1 milligram of THC. For the record, no one needs that much CBD. No one. If a user of CBD tests positive for THC, the test can either be inaccurate or most likely the zero THC product actually had THC in it. This is actually not common, but it happens in the CBD industry due to poor quality control. A urine test is the most common workplace drug test. Employers are not looking for CBD as CBD hasn't been found to affect judgment, or it's not a controlled substance either. Employees fail workplace drug testing for THC, which is the main active ingredient for marijuana. THC can be found in trace amounts in some CBD products and then remain in the human body for a period of time. Some of these CBD products may be mislabeled. What I mean by that is the amount of THC in some CBD products is understated. The quality of even premium CBD oils can vary in some unregulated markets, except for state-licensed adult use and medical cannabis stores that are regulated by product testing. CBD product testing from unlicensed stores have returned positive for THC. You get what you pay for when it comes to CBD. Please remember this. Please make sure you're buying from a reputable source, or you may find yourself on the wrong side of CBD and drug testing results. Additionally, If you consume a lot of CBD, for instance, 1,000 milligrams per day of CBD, some residual amounts of THC could endanger your test results. This is quite important, actually really important, because a failed drug test can bring about a denial of loss of job, income, or even both. This can result in a loss of individual access to vital resources like welfare, educational benefits, prescriptions for pain medication, and even child custody in really unfortunate scenarios. Once again, it's not because of CBD that you failed a drug test. It's about failing a THC drug test because you consumed CBD with THC in it. This failure depends on the source of your CBD, the amount you took, how long you took it for, your metabolism, and other factors such as hydration levels. CBD in drug testing is a tricky area, and it's mainly because of either the residual THC or the false positive that's notorious from really cheap THC test kits. Since phytocannabinoid research is still in its infancy stage, the drug test kits can easily detect CBD and count it as a THC molecular makeup. This is typically only the case for very, very cheap testing kits. If you're worried about CBD in drug testing leading to a negative result, see if you can identify which type of drug testing kit is used. This can be a great indicator of the nature of the kit. I'm talking cheap versus expensive. The Journal of Cannabinoid Medicine actually claims that CBD, the latest wellness craze, won't cause users to fail a drug test, but its lesser-known cousin, CBN, just might do that. While this article focuses more on false positives for THC, the user should keep in mind CBN content as well. Let's talk about CBD showing on a military drug test. Military drug tests are essentially no different from civilian drug tests. They're just outsourced to different contractors. For this reason, the results will be no different. That means CBD can show on a military drug test just like it might show a false positive on a normal drug test. So will CBD show on a military drug test? Sure, it could. Just like we mentioned above, it all depends on the level of THC in your CBD products. Residual amounts of THC are enough to trigger some THC levels in some drug tests, even if it's just a minute amount. If you're in the military, I'm just going to be honest with you, I would advise against using CBD for two major reasons here. One, it may flag you as a false positive for THC, which the DoD has a restriction on. Two, it might flag you as a false positive for THC and CBD. Both are restricted in the military. It's still considered a controlled substance according to the U.S. Department of Defense. You need to put your CBD oil source into consideration. Another factor that may compromise CBD and drug testing results is reported THC content being inaccurately labeled. A commercially available pure isolate of the CBD molecule should not contain any THC. CBD isolate means the CBD molecule is isolated. Meanwhile, these isolates are derived from hemp oil and vary in quality. Going by federal law here, hemp oil can hold up to 0.3% THC by dry weight. Due to the variations in the test results, sometimes the number is even higher. As we have recommended in the past, make sure you can check the certificate of analysis to verify the real contents of the CBD products you're consuming. I have a CBD ebook. It has an entire chapter dedicated to reading this type of analysis. Be sure to check it out if you haven't already. Aside from your source of CBD, bodily chemistry, length of use, dosage, and some other factors can dictate drug test failure or success. On one hand, a person who smokes cannabis with high THC every day, then quits, can still possibly fail a drug test more than a month later, depending on body fat reserves and some other things. As I mentioned previously, CBD in drug testing for a negative outcome has a lot to do with the specific testing kit and its quality. But how can you fail a drug test more than a month later? Well, the human body often stores THC in our fat cells and then later burns it into what's called THC-COOH later. On the other hand, you could theoretically consume CBD for months at little amounts, 50 milligrams a day, and never fail a urine test. It's not certain how much CBD is required or for how long to come up with more than 50 nanograms per milliliter of this THC substance in your urine. However, if you're consuming vast amounts of CBD, you could test positive for THC depending on the source, like we talked about earlier. If you haven't figured it out already, you will not be tested for CBD, you will be tested for THC. This is where CBD and drug testing gets tricky. If you're interested for any reason, you should consider the following detoxification guidelines for THC, including dieting, exercise, discontinuing use, and staying extremely hydrated to remove as much THC from your body as quickly as possible. The trend for drug testing marijuana use is moving towards testing less for non-safety mandated jobs. Many more states are stopping the discrimination against THC usage. Until all states make up their minds, make sure you're careful with your CBD and drug testing requirements. Look, if your job's on the line, I always recommend to just stay away for now. It's not worth the loss of income and the hardship that it will bring you. Hey, if you found this video useful, please consider clicking on the subscribe and the like button below. It helps make this video available to other people who could benefit from the information in it as well.